Life is short, and so is this book. Chapter 1, Create Space. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop to look around once in a while, you could miss it. From the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We all approach life in different ways. Some ways allow more time to think, to be creative, to do what's important, and to spend time with friends. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine used to be the CEO of a well-known internet company. He once told me he found it funny that the busiest people on his team were always the people to whom he could give more work, while the ones who accomplished less had little time for anything, often excluding their existing responsibilities. I found this an important observation. It's often the most successful people I know who are most efficient with their time and who always seem to have time to think about and to do more. The trick is people who are most productive tend to say no to things that are unimportant to them and focus on what they believe matters. When you think about it, how could it be any other way? Of course, activity by itself doesn't equal accomplishment, and certainly not success. Being busy just means being busy. I know many people who work super hard to fill up the spaces in their lives so they won't have to think. A wise colleague calls this numbing out. They may accomplish their goals, but they're unlikely to be fulfilled or do truly creative work. I know other people who fill their free time with meaningless activities. They're also busy, but they neither achieve much nor are they satisfied. In contrast, I once had a smart boss who told me if I wanted to do my best work, I needed to do fewer things and really focus on what mattered. That was great advice. Many people confuse want to with have to. In other words, just because someone else wants you to do something doesn't mean you have to do it. You can't get more time, so how you spend the time you have is critical. Focusing on what matters means saying no to things that don't matter. Otherwise, your life becomes cluttered with distractions. Technology presents both potential distractions and also great opportunities to use your time better. Technology is a tool. Used properly, it can help you, but like any other tool, it can be mismanaged. If, for example, you spend most of your day responding to emails or text messages or checking out your friends on social networks, you won't get much done. A better approach is to decide what you want to do and what is most important, make lists, then use technology to assist you versus allowing it to control you. To execute on this concept requires discipline and practice, but anyone can get better at it and make real progress if they want to. One way I like to use technology to save time is, where appropriate, to eliminate meetings and use email instead. I should emphasize where appropriate. Email does a terrible job of conveying subtle emotional content, so meetings are more appropriate for team building, for negotiating, for personal conversations, and for any other situation where it's important to look someone in the eye. But for some things, email is better. Mobile devices provide a fantastic way to stay connected and on top of work, wherever you may be. If you have any downtime, you can read books or articles, check emails, or browse the web from virtually anywhere. Distractions have increased for reasons beyond new technologies. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 60% of US families are two-income households, compared with only about 1/3 in the mid-60s. The statistics are directionally similar in much of the Western world. We're busier and consequently are tempted to do lots of things at once. A number of people I know claim to be great multitaskers. The brain, however, doesn't work that way. Instead, it focuses on one activity at a time. If you switch back and forth between multiple tasks, your brain works more slowly than it would if you focused on each activity for a period of time. Albert Einstein said, It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. Most of us do the opposite, with predictable results. To allow yourself time to think, there are many non-technological tricks to managing information. All of them require you to make choices to focus your energy. I like to set aside blocks of time for specific activities, even to read or chat. That being said, there are combinations of activities which work together and can make you more productive. For example, I frequently ride an indoor bicycle while reading, since the indoor bicycle takes no mental attention and it allows me to get exercise at the same time. Don't try to do the same thing though on an outdoor bike. Another way to free up time, if you have the option, is to live close to work. For many people, the amount of time spent commuting is huge, and it tends to be quite stressful and frequently not super productive. There are usually good reasons people want to live far from work. It's often significantly cheaper and the schools may be better. But if you think about the value of your time, it might not make sense. You might be able to afford a smaller home closer to your job rather than a bigger one with a long commute. And if you do that, you might have significantly less stress on a daily basis. In fact, when I lived in Manhattan, frequently the most relaxing part of my day was walking to and from my office. It didn't seem like a sacrifice to have a tiny apartment on the third floor of a building without an elevator. The ultimate reduction in commuting time is working from home, something that is becoming increasingly possible for many people, given the evolution of technology and the desire of companies to get the most out of their employees while limiting real estate costs. If you have a job which accommodates it, are self-motivated and have the space and quiet required to work well from home, it can make life considerably more pleasant and can create more discretionary time. A handful of my colleagues work from home. They all love it. None would choose to work in an office again. Making space in your life by using time efficiently also helps nurture creativity. I find it interesting that people who tend to be the most creative have 3 things in common. 1. They're incredibly well prepared in their fields. They become masters of their domains by practicing for many years, day after day. 2. They spend time deeply focused on solving a key problem or set of key problems, no matter the obstacles. 3. They allow themselves to step away from the problems on which they're focused, so that insights can come to them in activities such as walking or looking out on a beautiful scene. To get great insights absolutely requires hard work, but it also requires space. This is the case because the human mind is not a linear machine. If you don't put in the required effort, you won't be capable of generating good ideas. You won't understand the subject matter. But if you don't give yourself space from the problems on which you are working, you likely will be so worn down you won't generate creative insights. You need both. In taking walking these days, I try to notice the beauty around me. It helps me think and relax. In fact, I regularly take pictures with my cell phone camera, some are included here, as a reminder to stop and look. It's a simple thing, and my pictures won't win any prizes, but it works. Chapter 2. Try not to worry. If you can't sleep, then get up and do something instead of lying there worrying. It's the worry that gets you, not the lack of sleep. Worrying, I've found, wastes energy and wastes time. It limits what you can accomplish. I try not to obsess on the past, but to learn from it. I try not to worry about the future, but to prepare for it. And while it's sometimes difficult, I try to take pleasure in the moment, even when bad things happen. An inspirational woman I know has cancer. Yet she finds the beauty in every day and every moment. I don't know many people who are more positive or go through life with as much curiosity or energy as she does. The last time I saw her was at a dinner party. She was more engaged than anyone else that evening, constantly asking questions about new technology and how I thought it would change the world. I also have several friends with multiple sclerosis, and they live more restricted and more painful lives than most of us. But each seems excited every time we meet. They're clearly trying to get the most out of their limited time left on Earth. The lesson to me is that you can focus on something going well, or something beautiful, or something interesting, even amidst terrible times. I try to put things into two buckets. One I can do something about, and one I can't. The things I can't do anything about, I try to ignore. There's no use. For example, being jealous of other people's success or good luck. It won't make me any happier, nor is there any upside in worrying about a bad situation in which I find myself. There is, however, a lot to be gained from considering how I can move to a better place. I've also noticed it helps to accept the world as it is. Not in the sense that you can't change things, although that is sometimes the case, but in the sense that you need to see reality clearly before you can take effective action. As a professor of mine once said, if you think the table you are sitting at will fly, you have a problem. Accept that luck and bad luck aren't evenly or fairly distributed, and you can't do anything about that. I have many talented friends in the technology industry who've been paid over the years primarily in stock options. Some have made a great deal of money this way, and frequently they were just lucky to have joined a given company at a certain time. They weren't necessarily more talented than others. They didn't work harder or contribute more than people who started later than they did. They frequently didn't even have a strong conviction in advance that they'd make a lot of money, although they knew there was a chance they might. They were, relative to their peers, lucky. There are some things in life you can't change, such as your parents, your height, or the personalities of other adults. For the problems you can impact and you want to alter, think about what you want to accomplish and try to do that in a pragmatic way. You don't have to change everything overnight. In fact, thinking you can or should is likely to lead to failure or to feeling overwhelmed, and as a result, perhaps doing nothing. My experience the last 10 years illustrates this point. If I tried to build my investing business to scale in a short time frame, or worried when stock prices declined, I would have failed. I started investing immediately before September the 11th. While prices of internet stocks then were low relative to their business value, prices dropped significantly for another year and a half during the internet bust, before recovering to sensible levels. I had no idea that would happen. It didn't feel pleasant. My family lost faith in me, and most of my friends thought I was a bit nuts to even invest in the sector. It was only because I stayed focused on understanding the businesses in which I'd invested and was willing to stick with my convictions over a matter of years that my ideas worked out well. Over time, other people gained faith in my investing abilities, but it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't easy, and nothing I might have done early on would have changed that. Lastly, when you make mistakes along the way, as I have at many points in my life, accept them as well. I've tried to learn from my mistakes, their experience, and they're the sort of experience you won't soon forget. As Winston Churchill said, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. Chapter 3. Don't do really dumb things. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. Charlie Munger. You can't follow Charlie Munger's advice literally, but as a wise colleague of mine says, sometimes the most important thing to do is to not do anything really dumb. I found this type of inactivity is undervalued in our culture. Many investors overlook avoiding dumb mistakes. Warren Buffett suggests people approach investing the same way Ted Williams looked at batting. Only swing at the pitches in the center of your strike zone. Since there are no called strikes in investing, you should let the others go by. This sounds easy to do, and you'd think most investors would behave this way, but they don't. When many people buy stocks, they tend to think more about the potential upside than what they might lose if things don't go well. By pivoting that thinking and avoiding really dumb ideas, in investing, in business, and in life, you'll approach problems from a wholly different perspective. I've used this same mental model to try to avoid too much debt, drinking too much, staying away from people who are bad influences, eating poorly, and not exercising. I should probably make the distinction here between really dumb things and routine mistakes made in the course of your life. The latter, as I've noted, are certainly painful but inescapable and useful learning. What do I mean then by really dumb things? There are two classes: unrecoverable errors and denial. Unrecoverable errors can screw up your future, like committing a crime and going to prison, or limiting your options by not trying to get the best education available, or making decisions which likely will lead to major health problems or financial destruction. As an extreme example, I know someone who, as a child, accidentally shot his sibling. The sibling never fully recovered, and the accidental shooter never overcame his guilt. As a result, his life has been ruined. There are many things that are not nearly as dramatic, but can have a similarly negative long-term impact. What you choose to do each day matters. Habits form when we're young and solidify before we know it. So forming the right habits early is critical. Whether that means eating well, exercising, saving money, or being honest, as a wise investor I know likes to say, people become more so over time. The second class of dumb thing, denial, is common. Most of us ignore reality in some facet of our lives. It's often easier to believe things will somehow solve themselves, whether we want a lousy job to work out or we're so desperate to hire someone for a much-needed role we sacrifice on quality, or we overlook obvious issues in someone we're dating and assume they'll get better over time, or we can help fix them. These are all examples of wishful thinking. If you notice serious problems in the early stages of a job or in the hiring process, they're only likely to become magnified as you get to know the situation or your new colleague better. Ditto in dating. Small problems early on generally don't just resolve themselves with time, and it's impossible to change other adults' personalities, no matter what you may wish. A well-known joke illustrates the point. The biggest mistake men make when they think about getting married is they assume women won't change. The biggest mistake women make is they assume they can change men. The same warning about wishful thinking is true with exercise and pain. If you start feeling pain while exercising, it's the body's way of telling you to stop. If you battle through it, as many of us do, frequently you'll make the injury worse. So, how can you avoid really dumb things? I try to rely on my gut instincts. Whenever I feel that something might have a really bad outcome, I pay attention to that feeling. Feelings aren't always correct. We fear many things we have little reason to be concerned about in the modern world, but feelings can flag problems that may be difficult to articulate. Proceeding when there are obvious issues is a dumb thing to do, even if it's inconvenient or painful. I've learned I'm better off doing nothing when the only available choice has glaring issues.